Mohammed and Jalal Farzaneh were kind enough to invite me to come and speak at several colleges and universities in this part of Oklahoma, and I was happy to come because I think there's some very important issues to be discussed, and I want people all across the United States to know about these issues, not just people in Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm. And so what do you do when you're not going around speaking and getting invited to speak? What is, your normal... I don't want to say day-to-day ritual, but sure, I mean, sure. What do you normally do besides speaking engagements?
Well, I have two jobs. I work as a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council, which is a think tank based in Washington, and I organize events about Iran. I prepare papers and reports that make policy recommendations to the U.S. government. I occasionally travel to Iran. I meet Iranians sometimes in Europe to talk about all the issues between the two countries. My other job is that I'm a Washington correspondent for almonitor.com, which is a website. It's only 3 years old, and it's exclusively news from and about the Middle East.
What was your most difficult thing to cover? More of your personal experience.
Most difficult thing to cover? Gosh, there have been so many crazy things. I think the most frightening story I ever covered was when the United States bombed Libya in 1986. I was in Libya when the U.S. bombed it. And believe you me, when your own government is bombing you, that's a little creepy. So I think that was probably the hairiest moment. But I've had many wonderful experiences too, and I've really enjoyed all the interviews that I've done with interesting individuals and officials. I enjoyed very much covering secretaries of state, particularly Colin Powell, who I have to say is one of my favorites.
Just journalism in general, what advice do you have towards women in journalism, since you originally went over to cover women in Iran? Is there any kind of advantage or disadvantage to being a woman?
Yeah, absolutely. I found it to be a distinct advantage to be a woman. I think it's kind of reverse sexism. Most of the officials in the Middle East would rather be interviewed by a woman than a man journalist if they have a choice, and they usually don't expect you to ask really tough questions. So it's great fun to go into these interviews and then really sock them with something very hard. Prepare extremely well and make sure you come across as very serious and very professional. It has a lot of benefits. Certainly, for me, I get good interviews, but I think it also increases appreciation for women journalists among a lot of these officials. I would say, by the way, that there are a lot of women journalists in the Middle East, and particularly in Iran, who are very, very good. So, it's a good profession for women. Let's face it, it's a profession where you're paid to learn and you're paid to go and meet new people. So it favors, people who have outgoing personalities and who like to travel and like to experience new things. So, what better, and who like to write. Yes. So I think it's really quite ideal. Maybe not all women want to be war correspondents, but certainly to do the kind of work that I've done, I think it's a very, very good profession for women.
And just to kind of close this out, you're here and talking about the nuclear negotiations and like present day relations with Iran. What do you see the future in that? How do you, just to close it out?
Yeah,
how do you
well, I am optimistic. I don't know how long it's going to take, but given the way Iranians feel about Americans, given the situation in the Middle East where the biggest threat is coming from these Sunni Muslim jihadist groups, not from Shiite Iran. There's a difference between Sunni and Shia. I think that we have a lot in common, and that the governments get in the way of that sometimes, but that the trend is going to be toward a better relationship. And maybe in 5 or 10 years, there'll be a U.S. embassy again in Iran, which will make things a lot easier.
Well, thank you very much for talking with me and taking the time out to come to the university in the first place.
It's really my pleasure, and send me a link and we'll put it up on Twitter.
Yay.
Okay?